I've hated Minho Kong for exactly 27 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days. That's how long I've been his executive assistant at Kong Industries. How long I've endured his Arctic stares and impossible standards. How long I've swallowed my pride while he dismissed my ideas without even looking up from his screen. Harvard Business School graduate reduced to fetching coffee for a man who has never, not once, bothered to ask how I take mine. And now here I am, trapped on this obscene display of wealth he calls a yacht, Emperor's Crown, emblazoned in gold lettering, as if the name itself isn't enough to make you gag. 3 days at sea with the human glacier and his circle of sycophants. 3 days of watching investors fall over themselves trying to impress him while he regards them with those cold, calculating eyes that never quite commit to a smile. Do they not see it? The emptiness behind his practiced charm? The way his attention evaluates everyone like assets on a spreadsheet? I've spent 2 years watching him reduce grown men to stammering apologies with just a raised eyebrow. I've witnessed him fire people for being 5 minutes late to meetings he himself rescheduled without notice. I've compiled the termination paperwork, my fingers trembling with rage at the callousness, the casual way he discards human beings when they no longer serve his purpose. The Mediterranean stretches around us, impossibly blue, deceptively peaceful. I stand at the edge of the party, clipboard clutched in my hands, watching him work the crowd. Custom Tom Ford suit, not a wrinkle despite the sea breeze. Posture so perfect it makes my spine ache just looking at him. He moves with practiced precision, knowing exactly how many seconds to spend with each person to make them feel momentarily significant without wasting his precious time. 27 months of my life sacrificed at the altar of his ambition. 27 months of swallowing bitter comments, of working weekends without thanks, of rearranging my entire existence to accommodate his ever-changing demands. And for what? A paycheck that barely covers my sole apartment and my father's medical bills. The vague promise of advancement that seems to recede like the horizon every time I think I'm getting closer. I don't see the other vessels approaching. None of us do. We're too blinded by wealth and pretension, too insulated in our bubble of privilege. The first explosion rocks the yacht like a giant hand shoving it sideways. Champagne glasses shatter on imported marble. Screams replace mindless chatter. And suddenly, the careful orchestration of power and influence dissolves into chaos and terror. Men in black tactical gear swarm the decks, weapons raised, faces obscured. Not the bumbling pirates of movies, but methodical professionals executing a carefully planned operation. They move with military precision, separating passengers, confiscating phones and jewelry, creating controlled panic. I find myself shoved into a storage room, stumbling over coiled ropes and maintenance equipment. And because the universe has a cruel sense of humor, I'm not alone. Minho Kong himself is pushed in behind me, the door slamming shut, plunging us into semi-darkness broken only by a small porthole's fading light. For the first time since I've known him, Minho Kong looks human. His perfect composure cracked, hair falling across his forehead, eyes wide with something I've never seen in them before. Fear. Raw, unfiltered, human fear. And God help me, that's when everything begins to change. The storage room smells of teak oil and salt water, too small for the massive ego I've always associated with Minho Kong. We've been here for hours, listening to boots tramping past the door, muffled shouts in languages I don't recognize, occasional bursts of what might be gunfire. My arm throbs where I caught it against a metal shelf during that first explosion. Blood seeps through my sleeve, not enough to be dangerous, just enough to add one more misery to this nightmare. You're bleeding. His voice startles me. 2 words, more personal attention than he's given me in months. I want to respond with something biting, something that conveys exactly how little I care about his sudden concern, but the pain makes me honest. It's fine. It's not. He moves closer in our confined space, and I resist the urge to back away. This man has made my professional life a living hell, has reduced me to tears in bathroom stalls more times than I can count, has questioned my competence while piling on expectations no human could possibly meet. And now he's looking at my injury with something that resembles actual concern. I watch, speechless, as he removes his suit jacket, then tears the sleeve of his shirt. His ridiculously expensive silk shirt that probably cost more than my monthly rent. With no more ceremony than if it were a paper towel. The careful way he wraps the fabric around my cut. The precision of his movements. The unexpected gentleness. It doesn't compute with the man I've come to despise. You were a medic? The question escapes before I can stop it. Before I was CEO. 3 more words, and suddenly 2 years of carefully constructed hatred develops its first hairline crack. Before he was CEO. Before he was the cold, demanding monster who dominated my professional nightmares. There was a before. There was something else. Someone else. More pirates pass outside. Their conversation audible but incomprehensible to me. Minho's head tilts slightly, his focus sharpening. He understands what they're saying, I realize. Another piece of him I never knew existed. Another layer beneath the impenetrable surface I've spent 2 years resenting. They separate us for questioning. I expect Minho to return to his usual cold self in the face of authority, to negotiate, to leverage his wealth and influence, to throw the rest of us under the bus if necessary. That's what powerful men do, isn't it? Protect themselves at all costs. When they bring me back to our makeshift prison, wrists bruised from too tight restraints, questions about access codes and security protocols still ringing in my ears, I find him pacing like a caged animal. At the sound of the door, he spins toward me, and the look on his face stops my breath. Gone is the composed executive, the calculating businessman. In his place stands a man consumed with worry, with barely contained rage. Did they hurt you? His voice is rough, urgent, stripped of its usual cool detachment. The question undoes me more than the pirate's interrogation. For 2 years, I've been invisible to this man except when I made mistakes. For 2 years, I've been a function, not a person. And now he's looking at me. Really looking, with genuine concern etched into features I've only ever seen arranged in disapproval. He tells me what he overheard, that these aren't opportunistic criminals after random wealthy targets. They're after something specific. Corporate secrets. Proprietary technology. Things locked in Minho's brain that could collapse markets, destabilize economies, reshape the technological landscape. If they access the prototype plans. His voice falters, and I witness something I never thought possible. Minho Kong at a loss for words. Minho Kong vulnerable. In the dim light of our prison, I begin to see the weight he carries. The responsibility behind his ruthless perfectionism. The burden that shapes his every cold dismissal, his every impossible demand. Not just profit margins and shareholder value, but consequences that ripple outward, affecting lives he'll never meet, futures he'll never see. I've spent 2 years hating a caricature, I realize, a two-dimensional villain I created to make sense of my own professional frustration. The man sitting across from me now, blood on his torn shirt and fear in his eyes, is infinitely more complex, infinitely more human, and infinitely more dangerous to my carefully maintained resentment. We need to work together. For words that would have seemed impossible 24 hours ago. Minho Kong asking, not demanding, not directing, but asking for my partnership. We huddle in the dim light, using a piece of chalk found in a maintenance box to sketch the yacht's layout on the floor. His knowledge of the vessel's architecture is precise, detailed. Of course it is. The man probably memorized the blueprints before purchase. What surprises him is my ability to fill in gaps, to identify systems, to understand the mechanical heart beating beneath the yacht's luxurious skin. Engineering internship. I explain when his eyebrow rises in that familiar questioning arch. But this time, it's not skepticism I see in his expression. It's reassessment. Maybe even respect. For 2 years, I've sat in meetings where my suggestions were dismissed before I finished speaking. I've watched my carefully researched proposals disappear into the void of his indifference. I've prepared presentations only to have him cut them short with a wave of his hand. That's not what we need, Ms. Williams. Now, in the storage room with danger pressing against the door, he listens. Really listens. Asks questions. considers alternatives, builds on my ideas rather than dismantling them. The hierarchy that defined our relationship for 27 months dissolves in the face of shared danger, replaced by something I never expected to find with Min-Ho Kong: collaboration. We discover the pirates have separated the wealthy passengers, isolating those with access to valuable information or ransom potential. Our absence from this roundup is telling. They've underestimated us both. Me because I'm staff. Him because they don't realize he's not just the yacht's owner but the architect of the technology they seek. Their mistake becomes our advantage. The ventilation system becomes our ally, allowing us to move through the yacht unseen, to gather intelligence, to witness the true scope of what we're facing. These aren't random criminals but trained operatives with specific targets. The yacht, I realize, was never the target. Min-Ho was. His technology, his knowledge. I've imagined Min-Ho Kong in many situations over our 2 years together. I've pictured him ruthlessly cutting jobs to improve quarterly reports. I've envisioned him in boardrooms, silencing opposition with a single cold stare. I've seen him in my mind's eye, sitting in his penthouse counting profits while employees work overtime without compensation. What I never imagined, could never have imagined, was Min-Ho Kong placing himself in danger to protect someone else. When they drag a young steward past our hiding place, blood streaming from his nose, something breaks in Min-Ho's carefully maintained composure. I see the decision form in his eyes a split second before he moves. I reach for him, to stop him, to protect him, I'm not sure which, but he's already gone, creating a distraction that draws attention away from the injured crew member. The recklessness of it stuns me. This is a man who calculates risk in his sleep, who never makes a move without considering all possible outcomes. And yet he's just placed himself in jeopardy for someone he barely knows, someone who contributes nothing to his bottom line. His distraction gives me the seconds I need to pull the injured steward into our hiding place, but one of the pirates notices movement. Our sanctuary compromised, we're forced to flee through narrow maintenance passages, the young crew member supported between us. When we're cornered, 3 armed men blocking our escape route, Min-Ho does something that rewrites everything I thought I knew about him. He places himself between me and danger, not as a business strategy, not as a calculated risk, but as an instinctive human response to protect another person. The Min-Ho Kong I thought I knew would never risk his valuable life for an assistant he could replace with one phone call. The Min-Ho Kong I've spent 2 years resenting would prioritize his own survival above all else. But the man who stands between me and armed thugs, his body a shield against potential violence, is someone I've never met before. Later, hiding in a different part of the yacht, I treat his wounds with supplies stolen from the galley. His sleeve is torn, revealing a gash that will leave a scar. Min-Ho Kong with a scar. Another impossibility in a day filled with them. His perfect exterior marked permanently by an act of selflessness I never would have attributed to him. Why did you do that? I ask, my fingers gentle on his injury despite the confusion raging through me. 2 years of hatred don't disappear in a day, but they're increasingly difficult to reconcile with the man before me, who winces slightly but doesn't complain as I clean the wound. His answer comes after long silence, words careful as if he's translating thoughts from a language I don't speak. Because some things matter more than survival. The simplicity of it undoes me. This man who embodies corporate survival of the fittest, whose entire business existence revolves around competitive advantage and strategic positioning, has just placed a moral principle above self-preservation. I've spent 2 years creating a monster in my mind. A two-dimensional villain who served as convenient repository for all my professional frustrations. The real Min-Ho Kong is turning out to be far more dangerous. Not because he's cruel, but because he's complex. Not because he's cold, but because there's unexpected warmth beneath the frost. The Mediterranean throws a tantrum around us, waves slapping against the hull like angry hands, wind howling through the yacht's superstructure. Nature's fury provides unexpected cover. The pirates' movements restricted by the storm's violence, their attention divided between their mission and basic survival. We found temporary sanctuary in a maintenance closet barely big enough for 2 people. Too close. Close enough that I can smell the lingering traces of his cologne beneath sweat and blood. Close enough to see the fine lines around his eyes that speak of sleepless nights I never considered he might have. Close enough that, when thunder cracks overhead, I can feel him flinch slightly, a tiny human reaction from a man I've always thought impervious to normal responses. Rain lashes against the small porthole, turning the world outside into watery chaos. Inside, something just as turbulent is happening as Min-Ho Kong speaks of things I never imagined he would share. My parents built the company from nothing, he says, voice barely audible above the storm. When I was 16, a competitor stole their breakthrough medical device design. Within a year, my father's life work was being manufactured in factories he'd never see, making profits that should have secured our future. I listen, unable to reconcile this narrative with the man who embodies corporate ruthlessness in my mind. He continues, each word seemingly difficult to extract from some long-sealed vault. The lawsuit destroyed them, not just financially but spiritually. My father had a stroke during the final appeal. My mother, she couldn't bear seeing him reduced to dependency. They were both gone within 2 years. The coldness I've resented for so long suddenly has context. The impossible standards, the distrust, the arm's-length evaluation of every person who enters his orbit. They're not the capricious cruelty I've imagined but defense mechanisms built by a boy who watched his family destroyed by betrayal. The technology they want now, he explains, gaze fixed on the storm beyond the porthole. It could protect others from what happened to my family. Encryption that can't be broken, authentication that can't be faked. It would make what was stolen from my parents impossible to steal from others. Understanding blooms like a bruise spreading beneath skin. His impossible standards aren't arbitrary torture but desperate prevention. His coldness isn't lack of feeling but too much feeling carefully contained. His distance isn't disdain but hard-earned caution. 2 years of hatred built on fundamental misunderstanding. 2 years of painting him as villain when he was just a man shaped by wounds I never bothered to imagine. The confession creates a vacuum that pulls my own truths to the surface. I find myself telling him about growing up with a single father who sacrificed everything for my education. About scholarship applications filled out by lamplight when electricity was a luxury. About entering elite universities where classmates had family names on buildings and I had secondhand textbooks and determination. They look at me and see an assistant. I say, the words carrying years of accumulated frustration. They don't see the double majors, the thesis that won departmental honors, the technical knowledge I've had to hide because it makes men in boardrooms uncomfortable. They see someone to fetch coffee and schedule meetings. I saw your thesis, he says quietly, before I hired you. The simple statement rocks me more than the storm rocks the yacht. For 2 years, I've assumed I was hired because I was competent but non-threatening, because I would follow orders without questioning. You read my work on sustainable engineering applications? My voice sounds strange to my own ears, suspended between accusation and wonder. It was impressive. 3 more words that dismantle my carefully constructed narrative. I hired you because you think differently than anyone else at Kong Industries. I needed that perspective. Then why? I can't finish the question, but I don't need to. He understands. Why did I never use it? The corner of his mouth lifts in what might be a smile or grimace. Because you hated me from the first day. Because I recognized that hatred and thought it was safer than the alternative. What alternative? Lightning flashes, illuminating his face in stark relief. In that brief, brilliant moment, I see something in his eyes I've never allowed myself to notice before. Something that makes my carefully maintained anger waver. Trust, he says simply. I don't trust easily. And you made it very clear you didn't want anything from me except a paycheck. Thunder crashes directly overhead, making the small closet vibrate around us. I reach instinctively for stability and find his hand. Our fingers intertwine without conscious decision. Warm skin against warm skin, connection forged in crisis. Neither of us acknowledges it. Neither pulls away. Through the storm's fury, something shifts between us. Not forgiveness exactly, not yet understanding, but the beginning of both. The recognition that we've both been fighting shadows of our own creation. Dawn breaks across troubled waters, pale light filtering through the porthole to find us huddled over a crude map drawn on salvaged paper. Minho studies it with the same intense focus he brings to quarterly reports, but something has changed in his approach. Where once he would have dictated strategy without input, now he asks questions, considers alternatives, builds consensus rather than demanding compliance. We need to reclaim the communication room, he says, finger tracing paths through the yacht's layout. From there, we can contact authorities and coordinate with any crew still free. My engineering knowledge reveals weaknesses in the vessel's systems, places where power can be interrupted, where water pressure can be manipulated, where emergency protocols can be triggered with minimal access. Minho's tactical thinking transforms these isolated facts into coordinated strategy, each piece carefully positioned to create maximum advantage from limited resources. When Minho suggests creating a distraction himself, drawing attention away from the communication room by allowing himself to be captured, I feel something fierce and unexpected rise within me. No, the word emerges with authority I've never used with him before. We survive together or not at all. I expect resistance. Expect the cold dismissal I've grown accustomed to when challenging his decisions. Instead, something shifts in his expression, surprise followed by what might almost be respect. Together, then, he agrees, and the simple acquiescence feels like victory more significant than any professional achievement. You never mentioned your military background. Minho's observation catches me mid-demonstration as I show a terrified steward how to disable an armed opponent from behind. My movements are precise, economical muscle memory from years of training I've kept carefully hidden beneath business attire and professional demeanor. You never asked, I reply simply. Truth is, I've spent 2 years hiding aspects of myself at Kong Industries. The technical knowledge that made male executives uncomfortable. The tactical training that didn't fit their perception of an executive assistant. The languages I acquired living on military bases across Asia with my father, a special forces instructor who believed his daughter should be able to protect herself in any situation. Now, in crisis, I shed that careful disguise. The woman who emerges, decisive, tactical, unafraid to lead, is both foreign and deeply familiar. She is who I was before I learned to make myself smaller to fit corporate expectations. In the office, you're always so quiet, he remarks during a rare moment alone, voice neutral but eyes curious. My laugh holds no humor. Because you never created space for other voices. The truth lands between us, sharp-edged but necessary. For a moment, I expect the old Minho to resurface, defensive, dismissive, cold. Instead, he absorbs the criticism with a thoughtfulness that continues to undermine my carefully maintained resentment. I've never been good at creating space, he admits quietly. After my parents, I learned to rely only on myself, to maintain control at all costs. And how's that working out for you? The question emerges more gently than I intended, genuine curiosity replacing the bitter edge that might have colored it days ago. His slight smile holds surprising self-awareness. About as well as hating your boss has worked out for you. Chaos has its own strange beauty. As our plan launches, power systems failing sequentially, emergency protocols triggering in carefully orchestrated sequence, strategic diversions drawing pirates from critical positions, I witness the dance of deliberate disorder. Beautiful in its complexity, terrible in its consequences. Adrenaline pulses through my veins as Minho and I move through narrow corridors, our movements synchronized without need for words. 2 days ago, I couldn't have imagined trusting this man with my coffee order. Now, I trust him with my life, our communication reduced to glances and brief touches that convey more than speeches could. We've become something I have no name for. Not colleagues, not friends. Something forged in shared danger, in mutual recognition, in the strange intimacy of seeing someone at their most vulnerable and most powerful simultaneously. When an unexpected encounter separates us, fear claws at my throat, not just for myself but for him. This man I've spent 2 years avoiding, resenting, Misunderstanding has become essential in ways I'm not ready to examine. I circle back through maintenance passages, determined to rejoin him, to complete our mission together as planned. What I find when I locate him stops my breath. Minho faces the operations leader, a confrontation charged with recognition and history I know nothing about. This was never about technology, Minho realizes aloud, his voice carrying to where I remain hidden. This is personal. The revelation transforms the confrontation from strategic to visceral, no longer about corporate secrets or market advantage but about vengeance, about wounds inflicted in a past I've never been privy to. Their fight becomes brutal, technology forgotten as years of accumulated grievance explode into physical violence. At the critical moment, I emerge from hiding, not as savior but as equal partner in this fight we never asked for but must now finish. Together we overcome, but not without cost. Blood stains imported carpets. Breathing comes labored through injured ribs. Yet when it's over, when the immediate threat is neutralized, our hands find each other without conscious thought, fingers intertwining in wordless acknowledgement that we've crossed another threshold together. We need to reach the bridge, Minho says, voice rough with pain but eyes clear with purpose. We move forward together, neither leading nor following, both understanding that our survival depends on maintaining this delicate balance of mutual support. First light breaks over tumultuous waters, golden rays illuminating what remains of the night's violence. The bridge is ours, reclaimed through strategy and sacrifice, through cooperation that would have seemed impossible days ago. Exhaustion etches lines in our faces, blood and sweat replacing designer clothing and perfect composure. Victory tastes like copper and salt, blood and sweat and sea air mingling on my tongue. The sensation is foreign yet strangely satisfying. I've won professional victories before, secured contracts, completed impossible projects under deadline. But nothing compares to this primal satisfaction of survival, of beating impossible odds through sheer determination and unexpected alliance. Minho stands beside me at the railing, watching dawn transform the horizon from indigo to lavender to burning gold. His shoulder touches mine, physical contact that would have been unimaginable days ago now a comfort neither questions. We've crossed too many boundaries to maintain the careful distance that defined our professional relationship. We've seen too much of each other, vulnerability and strength, fear and courage, to retreat behind corporate masks. I never thought we'd see another sunrise. I admit quietly, voice raw from smoke and shouting and hours of tension. His hand finds mine, fingers intertwining with newfound familiarity. I never thought I'd see anything clearly again, he responds, eyes not on the horizon but on my face. The moment stretches between us. Question unasked, answer unhurried. Something has transformed between us, something neither of us has vocabulary to define. Not romance, that would be too simple, too expected. Something more complex, built from mutual recognition, from seeing and being seen in ways that transcend conventional relationship categories. When rescue vessels appear on the horizon, something like regret flickers across his features. The real world returns, he murmurs, and I understand instantly what he means. The approaching ships bring not just safety but the resumption of the roles we've temporarily abandoned. CEO and assistant, superior and subordinate, positions defined by corporate hierarchy rather than genuine capability. This was real too, I respond, newfound confidence steadying my voice. The understanding that passes between us transcends words, acknowledgement that what was built in crisis cannot simply disappear with safety's return. The real world reasserts itself with brutal efficiency. Coast Guard vessels surround the yacht, authorities swarm decks still bearing evidence of violence. Reporters circle like sharks scenting blood, desperate for details about the billionaire CEO, the dramatic hijacking, the mysterious defeat of professional pirates by passengers they assumed would be easy targets. In sterile debriefing rooms, investigators separate us, breaking the unit we've become over 3 days of shared danger. My story is dissected for inconsistencies, my role questioned with thinly veiled skepticism. I'm just an assistant in their eyes, my contributions to our survival minimized in their reports, my tactical knowledge treated as improbable rather than essential. Before I can respond to their dismissal, the door opens. Minho enters despite obvious attempts to restrain him, his authority radiating despite disheveled appearance. He stands in the center of the room, commanding attention without raising his voice. Ms. Williams is the reason anyone survived, he states with quiet intensity that silences the room. Without her knowledge, courage, and leadership, there would be only bodies for you to recover. When reunited after questioning, something has fundamentally shifted between us. The corporate world has rushed in to reclaim him, to reconstruct the walls between us, to reestablish the hierarchy that defined our relationship for 2 years. Yet he has publicly refused that reconstruction, has acknowledged my value not just privately in crisis but publicly in aftermath. You didn't have to do that, I say quietly when we finally have a moment alone, the yacht returning to port surrounded by escort vessels. His response comes without hesitation. Yes, I did. Seoul's skyline welcomes us home, familiar yet forever changed. 2 weeks since the hijacking, corporate structure resumes its rhythm with the resilience of systems designed to survive individual disruption. But nothing returns to previous patterns, not really. Minho's office door, once perpetually closed against interruption, stands open more often than not. Meetings include new voices, decisions reflect broader perspectives. I find myself in strange territory, recognized for capabilities previously invisible, included in conversations previously closed to me, valued for perspective rather than function. The hostility that defined my daily experience for 2 years has dissolved, replaced by something more complex. Not friendship exactly, not yet trust, but mutual recognition that transcends traditional hierarchical boundaries. When I submit my resignation, explaining my acceptance to graduate programs long deferred, I expect resistance. Instead, understanding fills his eyes, recognition of dreams spoken during night watches when survival seemed uncertain. The company will sponsor your education, he says simply. No obligations, no contracts, just investment in potential. Mediterranean waves lap gently against polished hull, not the emperor's crown with its ostentatious grandeur, but smaller vessel, private rather than corporate. 6 months since the hijacking that transformed understanding, 3 since my departure from company that once defined my professional identity. Minho stands at the railing, watching harbor lights fade behind us. Casual clothes replace tailored suits, the armor of corporate authority abandoned for simple linen that moves with sea breeze. In this setting, away from Seoul's demands and expectations, he seems both familiar and strange. The man I discovered in crisis rather than the boss I resented for years. I join him at the railing, the distance between us measured now in truth rather than hierarchy. You said once we needed to see if what happened between us was real or just survival. I remind him, echoing words spoken during one of our brief, careful interactions after returning to Seoul. And now? He asks, vulnerability transparent in ways impossible before our shared ordeal. My answer comes not in words but movement, distance closing between us as naturally as tide meets shore. The kiss tastes of salt and possibility, tentative then certain, acknowledgement that what began in hatred and continued through survival has evolved into something neither of us expected to find. Against endless horizon, 2 people transformed by circumstance choose transformation by choice. The cold CEO forever warmed, the resentful employee fully seen. What hatred built, crisis revealed, and choice now cements, relationship based not on projection or assumption but on hard-won understanding of who we truly are beneath professional masks. As stars emerge above peaceful waters, we chart new course together, equal navigators of future neither could have imagined before pirates forced us to see beyond titles to the humans beneath. Not perfect, not simple, but authentic in ways my previous hatred and his previous coldness never could be. In a world of corporate masks and careful distances, this simple truth becomes the most profound revolution of all.